リスト、パトリック・ベクルマさん。
Our first panelist is Mr. Patrick Behilhoma, Business Development Analyst at DMM Africa.
リッチー・エブリディ CEO、中本千鶴様。
Second, we have Ms. Nakamoto Chizu, CEO of Rich Everyday.
ピット・プロフェサ社、CEO、エリザベス・ロシェロ様。
And last but not least, we have
どうぞ前のお席に、お越しください。
we have Ms. Elizabeth Rosella, CEO of Bitpesa. Thank you.
本日はパネリストの皆様から、社会的な課題に取り組むビジネスを、どのように、始めたのかなどについて、アイデアを形にというテーマでお話をいただきます。
The theme of our panel discussion today will be Ideas to Reality, how to implement business ideas for social change successfully.
パネルディスカッションのファシリテーターは、早稲田大学国際教養学部の、大門武教授でいらっしゃいます。それでは大門先生、よろしくお願いします。
Our facilitator will be Professor Diamond, Professor at the University of Waseda School of International Liberal Studies.
Okay, thank you very much.
Quick announcement, sorry. For those who wish to listen to the simultaneous interpretation, please don't forget to use channel 1 for Japanese and channel 2 for English. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. I'm very happy to be here as a moderator of the discussions. And as I was introduced, I teach economics of development in this university. I was also visiting a lot of African countries. I counted the number of countries. Many countries. 80 countries I have visited, and among which lots of them are African. So I'm very happy to. And so why don't we go around the panelists and Patrick, Shizu, and Elizabeth. And Patrick is from DMM, Shizu is from Richie. And every day, and Elizabeth from Bitpesa. Why don't you talk about briefly your activities?
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm so honored to be here as one of the panelists. I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I've been in Japan for 8 years now. Luckily, I got a scholarship, a mixed scholarship to study at Meiji University, where I completed a master in public policy. But before coming to Japan, I completed a law degree, and then I got a job at the Parliament or Congress. I was assisting the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. I think Yano Sensei went to Congo when I was there, but we never met. Mokeni, a senator, I was assisting him, so I knew about him already, but without meeting him. Thank you. And so in Japan, after graduating, I got a job at DMM. Maybe you know DMM is an IT company, so we are a platform. We offer online services mainly, like video games, online, foreign exchange and so on. I got the chance to join a team 4 years ago when the chairman of DMM, after visiting Africa, he found that there is a lot of opportunities in the continent, and he decided to start a team that we called later DMM Africa. So after conducting about, I think in 5 countries in East Africa, business contest, we could actually acquire startups that are doing mainly electronic payment business in Rwanda and software development. And then later on we built up in Kenya and Ghana as well, and in Cote d'Ivoire. So, it was very interesting and challenging experience for him and the whole team members to start that business. So I hope we'll have a chance to get to go over details later. So that's maybe all about me now. In Japan, I not only work at DMM, but I'm engaged in social activities. I just joined an NGO, which is called AFRECO. It's Africa Forum Executive Committee. Maybe on August 11th, we organized a futsal competition, and the Ashinaga team was represented. I think it was very fun. I can see the players over there. So it's a side event, a TICAD7 side event, and I do PR. I'm in charge of PR in that organization. And on media side, I love TV, so I joined NHK Cool Japan, which is a cross-cultural TV program. So I represent the Congo. Basically, we talk about a lot of topics to tell Japanese people about our countries, not only Africa, but it's a global thing. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chizu Nakamoto. I'm the CEO of Rich Everyday Incorporation. Actually, I'm an alumni member of this university, Waseda University. I was a student of law faculty in 2007. Yes, and now I'm a kind of business person working in Africa. And I actually started my business with my mother. It's like a mother-daughter business. And in 2014, I used to work for NGO to support smallholder farmers in the sector of agriculture. And actually, I was working around in the local market in Kampala and Uganda. And I actually how can I say that, fascinated to see the beauty of African prints, like wearing today this print fabric. And I thought at that time there were no this kind of material in Japanese fashion market. So if I started this business to export this fabric to Japan, I thought that it's gonna be a good business. So that was my kind of business idea at the time. But actually, I had no skills or no techniques to make something using machines or how can I say that, sewing or like that. So I need a business partner actually, and I met one of a single mother living in Ashinaga School, Rainbow House in Kampala, and she had four children, and was raising them by herself without a husband, and but she had no jobs, no income source, so actually she was devastated how to send her children to school. So I thought it's so unfair because she had so energy to do something by herself, but because of no connection to the big people or no education status, she never been given that kind of opportunities to start up something. So that's why I asked her to start together, and now the business is actually becoming bigger and bigger. So I like to talk about my business today, and if you have some ideas to starting up something, please try by a small step, and you can see how the people are reacting and also the market is reacting, and then you can try the next step. So yeah, that's my, how can I say, the advice to you. Thank you.
Rosiello, and I'm American, but I spent my whole career internationally. So like some of you students, I studied international affairs and finance at Columbia University. And while many of my colleagues were focusing on Africa, I thought that I would work in Europe. So I went to Europe and I worked in investment banking in Switzerland and Italy, and London, and I saw all of these beautiful European finance crash. And I said, get me out of here. So I applied for a job in microfinance, which is something that I had studied at university in the Philippines. But they told me, sorry, job full, you have to go to Kenya. So I was just married and all my friends were devastated in their finance careers, and I had my loans paid off, which for Americans is important. And I went to Nairobi, Kenya, thinking I would go for 1 year to see what the microfinance market was doing. And this is in 2009, 2 years after Muhammad Yunus just won the Nobel Prize for his work in microfinance in Bangladesh. And according to my professors at Columbia, microfinance was going to solve all the problems in the world. So I was full of hope, and as you are when you're young. And I went to Kenya. And my job was to rate, so as a rating analyst, I was to rate microfinance institutions. And unlike in Japan, people from New York can be quite harsh. So my rating reports were very direct. And I kept writing the same type of report, which was, this is not an A rating, this is not a B rating, this is a D or an F rating. And you can imagine how surprised all the donors were. And they said, who is this young, squeaky woman living in Africa writing these harsh reports? And I kept saying, we are missing something big. Yes, microfinance is having good effects. Yes, there are lots of good things. But most of these institutions are not sustainable. So if we say we're going to invest in sustainable projects, we need to hold them accountable. And there are good and bad managers even in NGOs. And there are good and bad managers even in microfinance, and they need to be held to the same standards. We would find institutions that had no audited reports. We would find managers that were mismanaging funds. And two problems we kept seeing all the time. One was that these institutions were taking loans from international agencies, like in euro or dollar or Japanese yen converted to dollar, and then they were lending them out in local currency. And when you take a loan in one currency, a big one, $10 million, and you loan it out in many small loans in a local currency, you have a very large foreign exchange position. And I would say 99% of the institutions that I rated were not managing this foreign exchange position. And for those of you who know, foreign exchange risk can be very ugly. And I had just seen the market crash in Europe. So I was writing, I would say even screaming about this issue, and nobody was addressing it. So when you're a young entrepreneur, the first thing you need to find is a problem. And you need to be convinced that this problem is real. And you also need to validate that problem. So I was talking about this problem, and I'm hearing nobody has a solution, and nobody's working on it. But yet I'm hearing the same problem over and over again. So I started to think about how we would solve this problem. And luckily there was a seed investor who was seeding small companies in Nairobi, Kenya. And I had lunch with them, and I had worked with them in the past, and they said, Elizabeth, you know everything about this problem, you know everything about this, why don't you create your own company? And for me, I had worked for very large companies. I had worked for Credit Suisse, which has 66,000 employees. I worked for Goldman Sachs, one of the most famous names in the world. I had worked for Grameen, which is a very famous, so I said, I can't go alone. How can I do something alone by myself? I'm not a rich family. I have 2 little children that I just had. How possibly? I must not be an entrepreneur. And this person said to me, he laughed, and he said, everybody is an entrepreneur. You just have to be brave. So I said, okay, let me try. And here I am, 6 years later, The company that I founded was 2013 in Kenya, called BitPesa. We were the first company in the whole world to trade Kenyan shillings against other African currencies. And the way we did this was we used Bitcoin in the beginning. So I had a customer in Canada that wanted to send money to Kenya for their NGO, and I had no bank account in Canada, and I had accounts in Kenya. So I let this customer pay me in Bitcoin, and I paid out in Kenyan shilling. And the entire transaction was completed in 10 minutes, so no long foreign exchange exposure, and the transaction fee was a fourth of the cost as normal. And suddenly this business was able to operate with less foreign exchange exposure. Now fast forward 6 years later, I have 100 employees, 75 based in Africa, in offices in Nairobi and Lagos in Senegal. We have the first company of this kind, of this African-based company that was licensed in the UK and Europe, and we now transact almost $70 million a month. And we work with businesses who are trading across Africa. And we believe that we should not have to use US dollars if we're trading between Uganda and Japan. And if you have Ugandan car parts dealers and mechanics and car salesmen that are all Ugandan, they should be able to import directly from Japan in Japanese yen within an hour. They shouldn't have to first buy US dollars, send them to the US, and wait 2 weeks for those to clear. So we partnered with SBI Remit a year and a half ago to work with some of these suppliers. And last year we just had an investment from Sampo to guarantee with insurance some of our larger transactions. And well, I never thought that I would be an entrepreneur in Africa. And I also never thought I would have so much relationship with Japan. And due to JETRO, so the Japanese Export and Trade Organization, they came to the continent and looked for entrepreneurs and have been flying us back to Tokyo, to TICAD, and to meet with investors. And it's been a great bridge to success to expand not only what we're doing in Africa, but make connections around the world. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you very much for your feedback. Okay. Very interesting introduction of your activities, and then three of you have different country, different business. But I think some of the common things, a belief, strong belief that the business can save, or let's say poverty, save social objectives, SDGs, etc. Business can do that. That's a fundamental common principle. Lots of us have nice ideas and principles and dreams. But it's one thing, but another thing. But realizing it in terms of the business is another, and that's a very challenging starting point. And I'd like to ask each of you how you have faced with some initial challenge, because lots of us, the presenters themselves, are starting up nice ideas, but the problem is how to make them into practice. How did you overcome those? What are the difficulties? Initially started with difficulties. How did you overcome any more?
Well, I just want to make myself clear. I don't run any company. I work for one. So, well, at DMM, when the chairman started the project, so it was, well, he just said, we want to go to Africa to do business and in the company. So some people was like, okay, I'm going. So you can imagine, even just people were curious about Africa. They didn't have any experience working there, but they had the drive. They wanted to do something in Africa. So that was really one of the most important things or qualities to have that can help you like overcome all the challenges. So in our case, I think the first thing was when you go to Africa, a continent you don't know. So communicating with local people was the hardest thing. Personally, well, I'm from Africa, so it was easier. I had the advantage, but my colleagues, my Japanese colleagues, I had a chance to travel with one Tanzanian and Kenyan, so we were in Congo, but then we went to different countries. I went to Ethiopia and South Africa. So in Congo, they were lucky to have me so I could maybe facilitate. But from what I heard from other colleagues who went to other countries, so it was language barrier is something that can, even if you have the best ideas, that can just hinder the process. So to know one of the languages can help to overcome the challenges. Of course, there is many more on a practical insights. I think my other colleagues here can help more. Thank you.
I faced a big challenge, like there was no transparency, like for anything, unfortunately, like the government procedures, and also I don't know when the blackout is coming or when the water is stopped, and when the strike will be happen, and there's no information or transparency, I think. And actually those kind of things are crucial for our business, because we are now producing every day, like bags or travel accessories, like this clothing, like using electricity, and so we have to we have a plan, production plan, like we have to meet the deadline to export the products to Japan, and the buyers are waiting. But we don't have any information when the blackout is coming, or those kind of things. The production will be affected. So but we cannot do anything. Sometimes so we cannot do anything about those kind of infrastructures program or big program. So sometimes we need to buy a generator to keep production ongoing, or we have to make plan in consideration, taking in consideration those kind of blackouts program or water stopped program. Yeah. And after that, we can somehow overcoming, going through those kind of programs. So what I want to say is to how can I say, to get used to it, the situation. We need to observe the market or the society, what kind of programs they have, or those kind of things, so that we can see the solutions to overcome those kind of challenges.
Yeah, I'm smiling because these are very true things they both have said. I think when you're running a business and you're looking to scale and go from an idea to actually operate, you need to really think about being self-sustainable. So unlike maybe if I had created this company in New York, where I can call my uncle or my cousin or my friend that I went to school with, you have a trusted network of people you know and relationships you know. You are, as a foreigner, you don't have that trusted relationship. It becomes very hard to understand what the signals are. So even when you're hiring, you are understanding different signals. Now that I have a wonderful team, I'll go into an interview and my Kenyan colleague will have a very different opinion of the candidate than I will, because I'm not sensing the same signals. Now, if I were to be interviewing somebody from New York, I would say, oh, you know what he said, that's not true, I know that, or I know a guy who knows him. But it's very hard because you're very lonely in that aspect. So what I would say is to have a partner that you trust and start to build your own circle of trust around you. And I don't mean trust as in corruption, I just mean trust as in people who work in your business style. If you are a fast worker without a lot of planning, you need to have a team that does that. If you are somebody that likes to plan in detail, your team needs to understand your working style. Otherwise, you will become frustrated and quit. So I found that a lot of foreigners that came in who refuse to adapt or to find a team that works with them struggle to get off the ground. And when I expanded from Kenya to Uganda, and then Tanzania, and then Nigeria, I'm in 10 different African countries. Every one is like a new planet. And I was saying before that when we went to RDC, Congo, Kinshasa, I hired a consultant who was Congolese, and I thought everything was going great. And I'm shaking hands, I'm meeting everybody, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be easy. And all of a sudden, all business stops. And no idea why. And still stopped, you know, and it was just the fastest entry and the fastest stop. And then in Nigeria, we did a slightly different way, and that's our biggest market. So I think you need to understand, again, local nuance and how to really navigate, and don't give up, because it's going to be different than what you're doing here. And there are ways forward. I get very angry when I hear people say, it can't be done, or it's too hard, this market's too difficult. People are doing business all over Africa, very successfully, so it can be done. You just need to find your way.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I would like to touch one of the issues which all three have mentioned. One common thing is how to how to deal with uncertainties. And Elizabeth already suggested a solution to that. And but let me get to let's discuss more about uncertainties, and especially in the context of let's say Japanese society is here. Everything can be predictable. You know exactly at what point the next train will come. But in Africa, maybe next train will never come. You don't know. But because of nothing. And so, but the people are panicked if you come from societies like that. And how do you? I mean, one suggestion is self-sustainable. Team up with somebody you trust. Is there any other ways you can deal with uncertainties in those situations? Suggestions, advice.
Well, I think so. Personally, what I know is like when you go to Africa for business, you need to have really strong relationships with, especially people from the government, because it is important. You need their support. Maybe in Japan or other countries, you can, of course, still you need the support of public authorities. But to run actually your business, this I'm not just talking about like you have to corrupt people. No, it's not about that. I'm talking about having connections with local people who know actually the market and the environment and every other thing that you wouldn't really think about, and they would help you to overcome those unpredictable things that can happen. So yeah, I think for me the connections are very important.
Yes, as Patrick said, I think also like it's very important to have a connection in the local market. And please don't trust on the like a website information on the website, because you see like a last updated date is like 5 years ago or sometimes 10 years ago. So you need to go to see the people, meet the company to get the raw information. I think that's very important to start something. And also, like the second thing is, as Elizabeth told us, like don't give up. Maybe unfortunately there is nothing like to go through at once. Like we need to take sometimes 1 year to complete something. Like when I try to get my work permission in Uganda, it took actually more than 1 year. And sometimes organization A told me I need a document A, but organization B told me I need a document B, and organization C told me I need a document A. So it's connecting each other. And I didn't. How can I penetrate this kind of the circle? But maybe I never actually gave up to do something to get my work permit, and I try to see the people who is supporting me, or I sometimes see the other organization my lawyer to support me. And finally, I got the work permit to keep my to start my business in Uganda. So nothing is how can I say? You need to be patient sometimes, to start something in Africa.
We say always ask 3 times. You know, in some cultures, depending on where you are, you ask directions, like in Kenya. The man will say, "Oh, definitely left," and he has no idea. But it's shameful not to give a direction, so he will tell you left very convincingly. So you need to ask 3 people: left, right, left. 2 out of 3. I work in finance. We're always doing estimates. Okay, we go left. But in your head, you're thinking, if I don't find it in 300 meters, maybe I try right. So you're constantly having to find multiple sources of information and be comfortable with uncertainty. So number 1 is get comfortable with uncertainty, because that's your new lifestyle. And second is not to rely on one bottleneck or what we call one lever. You have to have multiple things going on at all times. So often we call it the big man to solve a problem. You go into a country, you take a meeting, and someone says, "Ooh, this country's tough, but I am the big man that will solve your problem." And you go, "Oh wow, I met the big man that's gonna solve my problem." But you don't know this big man is making the problem that then he solves.
Yes.
It took me maybe 4 years to learn. You know, don't trust the first big man you meet that says he's gonna solve your problem, because maybe you do some side investigating and realize he's creating a problem to solve the problem. So you know, ask 6 big men. Ask some women, ask some teenagers, you know, ask everybody around and become your own information source. And I think this works well with young people today. And I'd love to say with cryptocurrency, we like decentralization, distribution. We think it's safer when you have multiple sources of information. And you don't want to be mean, you don't want to burn any bridge, but you just want to check around. And it's only a fool who listens to one person and only follows that. And I think that's very important to learn. And you have to see it for yourself. So you need to get the energy of a journalist to really investigate. And often I'll have a new employee come to me and say, "We can't get the work permit." The lawyer said, "No." I said, "Get 3 more lawyers and pay them based on success." Which you probably would never do in Japan. But you have to adapt to different working styles. And you have to understand how to operate in a high-risk scenario. So if you think of this back into finance, you're not going to invest all your money in one stock, you know, unless you are very young and you have a lot of money. You're going to invest a little in different kind of risk classes. And the same thing, you want to put people on different types of projects. So right now we are 5 license applications with 5 central banks. If you were to ask me a year ago which one would come first, I would have been wrong. So Tanzania, the slower economy, has actually been the first to give us the license. And Nigeria, the fastest, is the slowest. But knowing that my expectations are often wrong, I apply for 5 at once. And I make sure the team is pushing on all. And whenever there's a stall, we kind of get together and say, how can we unlock this problem? And you need to really be creative in thinking through that.
Anything you want to add? Yeah.
May I just make it clear, when I mentioned about the connections you need, I think they have more practical experience because they deal with it every day with the lawyers and the customs. I don't know, people can even make up services. The problem is the system. We all know, people who have been to Africa, they're like worked there, they will tell you, the system. And I don't know, from like Congo, I'm from DRC, it's a big country, we have a lot of potential, and services are working, but it's just the way people are doing it, it's like everybody, sometimes there is the law, but sometimes you feel like everybody has their own law. And those who have power, if I'm like in the administration, I'm the director of this office in charge of issuing this document. So I need some kind of motivation. They use that. It's not like corruption, like in politics, but it's more like motivation. So, and this is like institutionalized in some cases. So the boss and the assistant and everybody who is involved. I'll give you an example. For example, for the passport. This is not secret. We know like, okay, the price, if it's $150, one passport, you pay your money, they say if 1 week, you get it. But if you want it in like 2 days, you need to pay more. So, and then people who understood that if they want their business to go, it's not like they are like corrupting, but they just want things to go like you mentioned about the documents. So that's why the lawyer said there is no document we can't give, and then you say hire 3 more lawyers. And so I think it just, knowing the practices can help, but you need to know you are not contributing to the corruption or something evil. But I think it's complicated to explain. I have a hard time to tell you this, but yes, I think it's more like to know the system, because you can kind of know how to overcome some obstacles and make things fast if you have the right connections with the right people.
Thank you so much. And maybe I don't know how it's related to the network issue. Thank you very much for your contributions. One thing that comes up to the mind, and often people complain, is that it's very hard, of course, it's really hard to do business in general, especially so in Africa, because of the lack of capacities, lack of capabilities or skills, etc. And when you encounter these cases of people with lack of skills, one quick and dirty solution in this situation is rely on top-down approach. You have to do this, that, on top-down. But this may not really solve the fundamental problem, and it does not educate anything. It doesn't do it. But if you're faced with people making mistakes and repeating them in business, how do you solve them?
So we work a lot on this. This is something that my organization really focuses on. Number one, we have 50% females all the way through to the top. Why am I bringing that up? Because, as Shizuo said, sometimes a lot of women find it very difficult to become employed. So they are more motivated, to be honest. So often we find young women twice as motivated as a young man with the same job. And then the men that come into our organization, we say, are you okay with having a female manager? And this is more likely to find a more open and innovative man. So already we set the terms of who is going to work in our company. And you will decide for yourself who's going to work in your company, but you have to develop your corporate culture. And even if somebody is unskilled, when they come in, we do a culture check. Can they work alone? Are they eager? Are they driven by only money, or they want to work for a place that's cool, or they want to work for children or women or fashion or internet or Bitcoin or whatever it is. So you have to find a motivation. When I was working in microfinance, some microfinance organizations would do a personality test. And they would say, how many Rolexes do you want? And if the guy said, I want 10 Rolex, this is not a good employee for microfinance. So you can already find out who you are without looking to see if they have 2 different master's degrees. And I would say, get away from hiring based on diploma. Because in a lot of these markets, the diplomas are certificates, that do not necessarily reflect. And a lot of amazing employees don't have the same opportunities. And then the second thing we do is we do small teams. So we give people the opportunity to lead a small team. And we train them on how to do that, and if they have success, we reward immediately. This shows everybody else, if they work hard and they train, they can be rewarded. So we do a very strict for a company that was small when we started, on rating yourself and rating your teammates. So we follow a methodology called 360 evaluation. So at the end of every project, and this is very similar to technology companies using the agile method. So every week we say, what did you do good? What did you do bad? What did your teammate do good and bad? What will we do better? Let's do a retro. What went really bad and what's gonna go really well? And then every week we keep a very open communication. And this way, if somebody is badly performing, they can't say, oh, this is how it is in Nigeria. You know, I'm sorry. We say, well, your 10 Nigerian colleagues don't think so. So it becomes less of what does the American boss say, and actually what does your colleague say, and what do they want to do? And I think that has really worked for us, but only with a systematic approach, where we make sure this is the methodology and we follow it. And if someone doesn't like it, they don't have to be there.
Yes, when if my employee making mistakes repeatedly, at first I observe why he or she are making mistakes repeatedly. Like sometimes she or he doesn't like that job, or sometimes he or she doesn't have any skills on that. So after that, I try to change the system, surrounding her or she or her, her or him. Like if she or he needs more support to improve their skills, like I will assign some person who has more skills. Or if he or she doesn't like that kind of job, I assign them to another job, not a management job. If she likes producing something using a sewing machine, I assign her to be a tailor, like that. It's very simple, just observing, and also thinking about other solutions, discussing with the other members. Yeah, because human beings, I'm also making mistakes, and human beings are the ones who make mistakes so many times. But I'm sure we can overcome those kind of situations. So I try to observe the situation and to see the solutions.
Okay, so from my experience working in DMM Africa, so when I started as an employee, so of course I had managers on top, and I was, of course, from somebody who studied law and public policy, don't have any clue how to even talk about business. How am I starting? So I think the point is, if you have an employee who is driven, so the question is when you go to find a job, it's not what am I getting here, but who am I becoming? So people are Elizabeth said, they are eager, right, to learn something new, so they can develop they can learn new skills easily. So in my case, I was probably because of my personality, bright personality, outgoing. Okay, do the PR. I've never done that before. How am I starting? But I had to learn by myself. I had to talk with people who are in the industry, and luckily I could be the interface of my team, on social media and on TV and stuff like that. So of course, with the direction of my managers, things that I would be able to do or not able to do, they would guide me on that. And if like for those who want to make businesses, if I become myself like a business owner someday, I think I would probably, after observing, I would focus on personal development, and if my employees would be better people and they will treat others, as human, that will be, because as she said, we all make mistakes, we are not perfect, we learn. So that's really a key thing to think about.
Thank you very much. And I think that the time is running out, but I want to spend some time for questions from the participants, comments, etc. And anybody who wants to make questions, yes, please.
Hello, thank you so much. My name is Diallo Mamadou. I'm from Guinea, MBA student at Globase, and I work for Japan Association for Refugees. I'm also an entrepreneur here in Japan. I'm a member of Sekai Creator. It's one of the best business incubator for Japanese students in Tokyo. So I have one question. Actually, I started last year a small company called NIP Africa. It's an event planning company for African people living in Japan. Because I noticed when my half Japanese child was born, I couldn't really celebrate because my room is small, and I tried to reserve some places. They said no, African events are boring, and don't bring drum here. So, so I couldn't really. So for this reason, I decided to start NIP Africa. But I faced many, difficulties, and now my question is how to build trust. How to build trust, because business is about trust, and how to, convince Japanese businesses to partner with African entrepreneurs, and how to help African entrepreneurs in Japan, actually. Because I don't really know, I do know African Business Institute, but the office is in Africa, how to really guide and help African entrepreneurs willing to go someday in Africa, and to realize a small business, or to stay in Japan to help try to find some solutions for for the African community living in Japan. Thank you so much.
This really resonates with me because I was a foreigner and I was working in a business that touched something taboo, which was Bitcoin at the time. And people said, "Get this away from me." So what I had to do is understand why they were scared. One, what interests them, as before Patrick said. They want to make money. Two, they don't want their money to be taken away because of a risk. If the drums are too loud and their neighbors complain, they've ruined their business. Is the money that they're going to be getting from these events more than the risk of them getting complaints from their neighbors? So you have to solve that problem for them. Before you ask somebody for help, you have to figure out how it's valuable to them, because it's a transaction. So in a relationship, you have to bring something to the table. So what I found is when I went to businesses and they said, "Who's your father? Who's your husband?" I said, "You don't know either of them." So they're not gonna do it on relationship. I said, "But I can make you money, I can get you famous by bringing you to the World Economic Forum or this or that, and I can reduce risk." So you have to come to the table with something. So maybe doing some more market research about how big this market is, how easy it would be for these partners to gain something, and how you are going to help minimize the risk.
I totally agree, with what she said now, and I think it's better, to give anything to the people who are worried about the drums or something, and anything opportunities, informations, to reduce their anxiety.
Quickly, I would like to add, as an African, I know how noisy we are, so we get, always the police will come. I don't blame the neighbors. It's normal. People need to rest, and you're disturbing them. Why? So I think you need to know, okay, I don't know the details about the business, so the environment. Okay, so if like you're organizing events and you have people coming to entertain others, so maybe your clients, the customers who are paying the money, they want the entertainment or the connections that, through networking. But then the neighbors, so who is causing the problem? What is the problem? So you need to know each person involved in your business. If the neighbors just normal people, then you need to change the location maybe, or look for places where nobody will be disturbed. But I think also another thing is the culture. If the people you are dealing with know your culture, I think it will help to solve the problem. Sometimes it's just like, you know, it's me, it's my culture. I mean, we are the best. So I mean, like, it's like as Elizabeth said, it's a transaction. So you give before you take, right? So it's a trade. In that sense, you can maybe help solve the problem.
Thank you very much. Last one or two questions. Let's ask three of the questions first. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Nabe Amadou Ali. I'm from Guinea. Very interesting information you've given. I've read about Big Pesa before, and some of my friends are doing their research on cryptocurrency. But it's a kind of a question and a plea at the same time. Most of you are doing business in Africa, you're doing great business development, and it would be very nice if you can do some human development also while doing business, because you talk about the problem of not getting the right skill you're looking for, but there's a way of getting students to intern. I spent 1 year finding an internship in my own country, while companies like international companies created by foreigners will bring interns from outside to come do the same job. I studied in Nigeria, I got the same degree, and if I'm given the same opportunity like everybody, I know I can excel. So please don't just do only business development. Please try to do some human development. We've got talents, but we're not given the opportunities, even in our own country, which is a sad story. So it's a plea. If you can give my brothers, my fellow people too, some opportunities to learn, so that they can also say, she created a business, he created a business, and she contributed to the human development, which is what stays forever. So the question is, how does you manage business development and social responsibility in Africa? Because sometimes it gets mixed up. They see you doing business, they see you making profit from there, and they expect you to have some sort of social responsibility. How do you manage it?
May I ask the other two questions and then ask?
My name is Iki Walter from Uganda, Toka University. My question is like, sometimes we young people in the university, maybe when you get some good grade, you have thoughts, yes, when I go back, I will change things. But when you go home, in reality, when you start implementing something, it's a different story. Even when you have developed your idea perfect and start working on it, it becomes a different story. So how do you think we in our level can prepare for that real world of trying to implement ideas, of trying to do real things? How do we prepare, in your opinion, as people who have experience? And the second is like, I've got friends who have been to different places in Africa, and they say in some offices, people will ask, don't you have something small, like something like that? Do you face such challenges? And if you do face, how do you address it? That's my question.
Thank you. And the finally.
Hello, my name is Sena Mokutoria Shinaga, so I'm Ghanaian Japanese. My question is very related to Walter's second question, is about corruption. And you mentioned big men in your talk and motivation. So I was wondering how you deal with corruption. I'm sure when you go to certain big men, they say, give us something small to make the process faster. So what is your own personal way, or as a company, how do you deal with that? And what's your advice for people who are going to encounter this kind of problem? Thank you.
Thank you.
So when we only hire Africans in our African office. We make that a rule. And for a long time, I was the only expat at the whole company. And I know different companies have different rules, but I believe in local currencies and I believe in local employees. So we have a lot of local interns, so that's there. And we often get people saying, oh, you're a social business because you're in Africa and you're female. And I say, I mean, I believe that what we're doing has a really big impact economically for the country, but I'm not working in microfinance, which is, I'm a for-profit company. So I try to make the split. And I say we're a for-profit company, but we're a company that we treat our employees well, we train well, we only hire locally, we look to hire 50% female. So you can have values and not be an NGO. And so you want to specify that. And when it comes to how to face reality, I mean, it's like any graduate. It's a real world, it's tough. You just need to understand nobody's going to help you. Mommy's not there anymore. It's like you're all by yourself and nobody has any sympathy. And everywhere you look, somebody's got it worse. So my mom I called her and she said, oh, you must be so tired, you flew. I said, there's a lot of people a lot more tired than me. So you just need to be the toughest. That's the only way you will succeed. Every morning just say you need to be tougher. And that's harsh advice, but hey. And with corruption, you just say no from the beginning. My colleagues are always laughing at me because I have all these stories where this Nigerian guy gets me my residency permit and in the taxi he goes, and now you thank me? And I said, I thank you very much. And I just said it. And I get out of the taxi. You just say no. And you know, people are usually shocked by that, but you just stay tough. And again, it's transaction. Show them that if they do business with you, you'll give them 10 more opportunities to do business. And cut it out, none of that stuff. And if you have a government official in this day and age, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if they're asking, they're maybe not in power anymore, you know, or they're kind of not going to be there. And I think your size company, maybe if you're Coca-Cola, it's different. Your size company, you really shouldn't be paying anybody anything. I know a lot of entrepreneurs who pay zero. So, you know, maybe a taxi driver or whatever, but for a government official, you should be able to get your way through there. If you hit 2 guys who won't do it, you should find the 3rd. Most airports, when I moved to Kenya in 2009, would ask for something at the airport. It doesn't happen anymore in a lot of places. So just stay strong and don't start, because once you start, it's a never-ending hole.
Yeah, like a fashion business is quite a problem, I think. Like through long value chain, in the long value chain, we have several problems, like hiring people with low wages, or like how can I say that, dyeing the fabrics with a toxic material, like that. We have so many, like our sector has so many problems. But I'm now running a company, and the company itself is for making impact to the society somehow. So I'm now doing the simple thing, if my employee works very well, I pay it well to them, and sometimes the company paid very with low wages because they are in developing countries or kind of reason. But I'm not doing like that. I'm trying to how can I say? I'm trying to react what they did to our company, honestly, and I'm trying to pay them with how can I say, honest wages, and yeah. So just doing business simply, is I think one of the solution to balancing the social thing, social things, and also the business. And to the next questions, as she said, there's no money that helping you anymore. So I think it's good to start by small steps, as I told you at the beginning, and maybe you can get somehow like the result from that small steps, and then you can think about the next step. And to the third question, it's very like difficult to answer, but I try to like find the solutions, like what kind of things they need from me. Like sometimes they just got happy if we talk each other, just talking. Or sometimes they need money from me, but I understand because their salary was too low. Is too low. So yeah, it depends on the situation. But before doing something, I try to like discuss with them what they want from me.
I'll be very short on this. For your question, I know that it's not easy, especially if you're trying to solve a social problem through your business. It could be confusing, people can confuse that. But in the case of DMM, for example, well, we know there is like doing electronic payment business in Africa, like in East Africa, it's already something growing. So we're just trying to work with local people. That's why we organize this Africa like Business Idea Cup, and the participants were all from African countries in East Africa. I think it was one of the requirements because it's for African people. So it really depends on your company, what you decide. If you open it up to everyone else, so then the skills, it's the merit base. If you know what you're doing, if you have the skills, then you can have the internship working. I mean, the opportunity should be there for everyone. So, and now the contribution, like the probably we could say CSR, corporate social responsibility. This is now, everybody is doing that, I think. If you don't do it, then people will be like, so why are you here? What are you doing? So at least what I see people do, they build, for example, schools for their local people, or accommodations for their employees. So something that you can leave even after you close your business, or you can still be there, but there is an impact. A social impact could be advisable. On the, as a young person starting a business, I'm actually thinking about my own because I don't have one, but working at DMM, what I learned is it's not easy. So I was like, from university after graduating, I just thought everything will be okay, they'll be like babysitting me. There is no babysitter there. You need to have the guts, and you need to be resilient, really. I mean, it's like the jungle, the strongest wins. I mean, even you have the laws and everything, the regulations, it's clear. There will still be some people with, kind of mindset to do things so that they can be successful and not you. So you have to be open, at the same time resilient, and open in the sense of learning new things, the practices and also all the regulations that go with the business. And hopefully you can become successful. And I think the most important is just a solution that you're bringing to a problem that you identify in the market. And lastly, I think I have always like a hard time to answer about the motivation and the corruption. It's really hard. We have in Congo, there is an expression in Lingala, we say Madesu Yabana. Madesu is beings. Bana is Kodomotachi, kids. So when I'm in the administration working and somebody comes to me, I need this paper, certificate or work permit, I know the person has to pay 100 yen to get it. But then, as you mentioned, the salary is so low, I can maybe not feed my kids or pay the school, and just tough in general for most of people like working in the administration especially. So I would say like, Madesria banner. So it's not corruption. It's like a motivation, just a tip. Thank you. It's a tip. So this, then again, it depends on people. If you think you're not convinced, morally, you think it's not good, then you shouldn't do it. Nobody will take you to jail for that. But if you want to help, then, well, it's really up to you. It's like with the taxi driver and any other person. But when it comes to government officials, like politicians, you should avoid. You should really be strict about that. I think there is still other good people out there working in the same office who will be willing to help you, make your business happen. You don't need to pay more money to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know you have more questions and I want to ask them to contribute, but unfortunately we are running out of time for this session. And thank you very much for that. For your view, please.
ありがとうございました。実際にさまざまな困難を乗り越えて実行力と想像力でアイデアを実現してきた皆様の貴重なお話に大きな感銘を受けました。これからプレゼンテーションを行う